West Tennessee Congressman David Kustoff joins us today to talk about a bill he sponsored called the Restoring the Armed Career Criminal Act. It would trigger a 15-year mandatory minimum prison term for a defendant who commits a firearms offense after 3 or more such prior convictions. Basically the 3 strikes law. In 2015, Congressman, the U.S. Supreme Court deemed the part of the Armed Career Criminal Act that defined violent felony unconstitutionally vague. Explain how the Restore Act would replace that and why now, 10 years later.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me on this afternoon. I think we can all agree that we've got a violent crime problem in our nation, certainly at the state level and at the federal level. You pointed out that this law, which is almost 40 years old, it was passed in 1984, had a constitutional challenge about 10 years ago. The Supreme Court struck down part of the law. What we would do in this bill, I guess from a process standpoint first, is define serious felony and label that as a serious felony to clear up some of the defections that the Supreme Court saw back in 2015. The main thing is that we want this law to be functional because we do have too many people who commit violent crimes over and over again. And we need to, number one, we need to punish them. And secondly, we need to deter this type of violent crime across the country.
Congressman Joe Birch here. Would those convicted under this proposal be prosecuted federally and therefore would be sentenced to a federal institution, or would they go to state facilities?
So, Joe, it's a good question. Of course, this is a federal law. Prior state felonies could factor in if there are 3 felonies, state or federal, but this would be prosecuted under federal law. And obviously, if they were prosecuted successfully under federal law, if this bill passes, they would serve in federal prison.
And I understand that Tennessee's Attorney General Skrmetti has given this bill a strong endorsement.
Yeah, and I appreciate General Skrmetti, not only General Skrmetti, Jonathan Skrmetti, who's the Tennessee Attorney General, but also the National Police Organization. We've had a number of other law enforcement organizations that see this as a necessary tool so that federal prosecutors can effectively prosecute these violent criminals who are perpetually in our system, either state or federal, so that they get essentially long federal sentences if they in fact are repeat offenders.
Congressman, let's switch gears now. You have cheered President Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill that he signed into law on the 4th of July. This legislation, as you know, gives massive tax cuts to the richest 1% of Americans, and multiple policy groups who are looking at Tennessee say ordinary Tennesseans will face cuts to Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act health coverage, and SNAP benefits. How do you respond to that?
Well, if we could, Joe, let's go backwards for a moment. I serve on the House Ways and Means Committee, so obviously I was involved in the tax drafting part of that bill. If we did not pass the one big beautiful bill in the district that I represent, Tennessee's 8th congressional district, there would have been an average 26% tax increase on everybody. So my argument, you said that the tax benefit would only be for the richest. It would actually be for everybody. This is everybody across the board. And I'll remind you that in the one big beautiful bill for working class people, we passed no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. So I argue that everybody from the top to the bottom to the middle gets a tax cut. Now, we've got to pay for it in some way, shape, or fashion. As it relates to Medicaid, I would tell you that we want to make sure that the people who truly need Medicaid, those who are disabled, those who are needy, that they are not denied any Medicaid benefits. Where I take exception is that in this bill, we looked at those people on Medicaid who are able-bodied, ages 19 to 64, with no dependents under the age of 13. What they've got to do is they've got to show that they work at least 80 hours per month or get job training. And if they don't, then they don't receive Medicaid benefits. But to me, it's a no-brainer that if you're able-bodied and you at least do that you stay on Medicaid, and if not, then you're removed from the Medicaid rolls.
Cuts to supplemental nutrition assistance, or SNAP, are particularly concerning for Memphis and rural West Tennessee, your 8th district. It's estimated Tennesseans will lose approximately 20% of SNAP benefits. Many of those Tennesseans are children. How do you reconcile reducing that food safety net in exchange for tax cuts for the rich?
So again, well, it's not tax cuts for the rich. Everybody gets the tax benefit, and everybody gets a tax reduction. The SNAP benefit has a lot of the same provisions that I just talked to you about with Medicaid, that we're closely examining those able-bodied people who are receiving either SNAP or Medicaid. All they've got to do, Kim, is show that they're working 80 hours a month, or that they get job training. And I'd say that if people are able-bodied and they do that, and they get the job training, that eventually they can remove themselves from SNAP benefits and they can remove themselves from Medicaid. There are employers all throughout Memphis and Shelby County and West Tennessee that tell me they need bodies to go to work for good jobs. So if we incentivize those people to get job training, it's a win-win.
Well, Congressman, thank you very much for taking time out for us today here on our broadcast known as A Better Memphis. We hope to visit with you again in the near future to discuss the challenges that face the 8th District, which of course includes Jackson, Tennessee, Martin, Tennessee, and just about all of West Tennessee except for Memphis. So we look forward to chatting again. Thank you, sir.
Joe, thank you very much. If I can tell you, I was watching you the night that Fred Smith passed away, and I thought Action News 5, you and your team did a great job covering Fred Smith and everything that he's done for Memphis and Shelby County in a breaking news situation. So I thank you guys for doing that.
Well, thank you, sir. As your law partner, Jim Strickland, the former mayor of Memphis, said, it's the most significant Memphian in history. Thank you, sir, for your kind words.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
All right, sir.